Amelia lay face down on the bench, right in front of the jeering crowd, her back exposed, her white dress clinging to her trembling frame. The square was packed, merchants, wives, children, all laughing, pointing, even cheering. To them, this was routine. Justice. She stole, she pays, they cried. This is how we keep order in Harrows Hollow. But as the cane rose for the third stroke, no one knew what this girl had really done. And no one could guess what she would do. The market of Harrows Hollow smelled of sweat, burnt barley, and desperation. Dust hung in the late morning sun, caught in slants of golden light between crooked timber houses. Chickens pecked at spilled grain near the well. A blacksmith's hammer rang like a funeral bell, clang, 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 steady, unfeeling. And somewhere in the throng, unnoticed until it was too late, moved Amelia. She was 20, slight as a willow switch, with chestnut hair braided tight down her back, though 2 stubborn strands had escaped, clinging to her damp temples. Her face was pale beneath a dusting of freckles, her green eyes sharp as flint, scanning, calculating. She wore a simple frock of homespun linen, off-white, knee-length, its hem frayed and faintly embroidered with faded blue thread, a relic from her mother's hope for gentler days. No shoes. Only leather ties crisscrossed around her ankles, worn thin. She wasn't born to thievery. But hunger had a way of rewriting destiny. Her brother, Ellis, lay feverish in their cellar room beneath the tanner's shop, his ribs stark beneath skin stretched too tight. 2 days without bread. 1 day without water he could keep down. The apothecary's herbs cost silver. The baker's day-old loaf, a copper farthing she didn't have. So she watched. The merchant, Master Corvin, was fat, prosperous, his doublet slashed to show crimson silk beneath. He laughed too loudly, slapped a customer's back too hard, and his coin pouch, heavy and bulging, hung from his belt like a taunt. It swayed with every step, jingling softly. Silver pennies, groats, maybe even a noble. Amelia moved. She didn't run, she flowed. A slip between 2 arguing drapers. A stumble, into a fruit stall, sending apples rolling, drawing eyes away from the merchant's side. Her hand, small and quick as a sparrow's wing, darted out. Fingers brushed rough leather, found the drawstring, yanked. A snick. The pouch came free. She tucked it into the folds of her frock, heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She turned, just as a shadow fell across her. Sir Jerick, town guard captain, stood like an oak rooted in the cobbles. Broad-shouldered, face scarred from border skirmishes, his hand rested on the hilt of his sword. His eyes, cold, grey, and utterly unsurprised, locked onto hers. "Thief," he said. Just one word. Quiet, final. Panic, pure and icy, flooded her veins. She ran. Bare feet slapped stone. She wove past carts, ducked under awnings, her white frock a flash of ghostly defiance in the crowd. A fishmonger shouted. A child pointed. But Jerick moved with grim inevitability, cutting her off near the old stone well. His gauntleted hand closed around her upper arm, iron, and spun her around. The pouch tumbled from her grasp, coins spilling onto the cobbles with a sound like falling stars. The crowd gathered instantly. A ring formed, not malicious, not yet, but curious, hungry for spectacle. Whispers rose. That's the tanner's girl. Her mother died in the winter flux, stealing from Corvin. Foolish. Corvin pushed through, face purple. My coin. That little rat. Jerick didn't release her. Enough, master. The magistrate decides her fate. And so, they led her, not to a dungeon, but to the justice platform. It stood in the square's heart, 4 worn oak posts supporting a raised deck, scarred by years of proclamations, trials, and punishments. A simple, backless wooden bench sat center stage. Nearby, leaning against a post like a grim sentinel, was a bundle of willow switches, thin, supple, and pale as bone. The magistrate, Alderman Thorne, emerged from the Guildhall. He was tall, severe, draped in a robe of deep, unadorned wool the color of dried blood. Silver threads traced the hem, subtle, expensive. His face was long, lined not with age, but with the weight of unwavering order. Wire-rimmed spectacles perched on his nose, glinting in the sun. In his hand, he carried no sword, no hammer, just a slender rod of polished yew. The cane of office, symbol of his authority to correct. He mounted the platform. The crowd hushed. Amelia stood before him, trembling not from cold, but from the sheer, crushing exposure. Her white frock, once a symbol of innocence, now looked absurdly fragile against the harsh timber and stone. Dust streaked her knees. Her braid had half undone, framing her face in wild chestnut tendrils. Her green eyes, wide and bright with unshed tears, refused to drop. Thorne's voice cut the silence, dry as parchment. Amelia, daughter of the late Ilara, resident of the Tanner's Row cellar. You stand accused of theft in the open market, property of Master Corvin. Do you deny it? She swallowed. Her throat felt like ground glass. No, Alderman. A murmur. Honesty. Or pride. Then, Thorne continued, tapping the yew-rod once against his palm. Tap. A sound that echoed like a nail driven home. You accept the penalty, as decreed by town charter for petty larceny, witnessed by the Guild Council and the Crown's peace. 3 strokes of the willow cane. Publicly. As example and correction. He gestured to 2 guards. Prepare the bench. This was the moment. The horror crystallized. Not the stocks, where one stood, ridiculed but upright. Not the pillory, where one's head and hands were trapped, facing the crowd. This was older. Simpler. More intimate. More shaming. The guards guided her, not roughly, but with implacable efficiency, to the bench. It was low, worn smooth by countless others before her. Thorne's voice, devoid of malice, but utterly devoid of mercy, followed her. Lie down. Face down. Arms and legs extended. Her breath hitched. This wasn't just punishment. It was erasure. Reducing her to a body on wood, vulnerable, exposed to every eye in Harrows Hollow. She could feel them, the baker's wife, clutching her apron, the blacksmith, arms crossed, children peering from behind skirts, Corvin, radiating smug satisfaction. For Ellis, she thought, the words a desperate mantra. For Ellis. Bear it. Bear it. She lowered herself. The rough wood scraped her cheek. The scent of old sweat and damp oak filled her nostrils. Strong hands bound her wrists together in front of her, the coarse rope biting into her skin. Ankles followed, secured to the bench legs. She was pinned. A specimen. Thorne selected a willow switch from the bundle. It hissed softly as he tested its flex. The first stroke, he announced, for the act of theft. He raised the cane. Crack. The sound was shockingly loud. A white-hot line of fire seared across her back, just below the shoulder blades, through the thin linen. She gasped, a raw, animal sound ripped from her chest. Her body arched involuntarily against the bonds. Tears sprang, hot and immediate, blurring her vision of the cobbles inches from her face. "1," Thorn stated. Silence. Thick, heavy. Only her ragged breathing and the distant clang of the blacksmith. "The second stroke," he intoned, voice unchanged, for the disregard of law and community. Crack. Lower this time. Across the small of her back. The pain was deeper, sharper, a bloom of agony that stole her breath entirely. A sob escaped, choked and broken. She tasted salt, tears, or blood bitten from her lip. The white frock was darkening where the cane had struck, damp patches blooming like ugly flowers. 2. The crowd shifted. A woman turned away. A man cleared his throat, uncomfortably. The apothecary frowned, fingers tapping his own purse. "The third and final stroke," Thorn declared, the urod tapping his palm once more, tap, tap, like a countdown, for the contempt shown to honest labor and honest men. He raised the cane higher. Amelia squeezed her eyes shut. "Ellis. Ellis. Ellis." She braced, muscles locked, waiting for the final, shattering blow. Crack. It landed squarely between the first two. Not harder, but deeper. A wave of nausea rolled through her. The world tilted. For a second, darkness threatened at the edges of her vision. She fought it, clinging to consciousness, to pride. She would not scream. Not again. 3. Justice is served. The ropes were untied. Her wrists, raw and throbbing, fell limply to the bench. She lay there, trembling, sweat and tears mingling on her cheek pressed to the wood. The silence was absolute now. Oppressive. Then, Thorn's voice, cutting through the haze, "Rise, Amelia. You will make your apology to the town. Publicly. Or the cane returns." Every muscle screamed in protest. Every instinct screamed stay down, hide, disappear. But Ellis's face swam before her, hollow-eyed, burning with fever. Survive. Just survive this. Gritting her teeth until her jaw ached, she pushed herself up. Slowly. Awkwardly. Her back felt like it was wrapped in brands. She stood on unsteady legs, swaying slightly. The white frock was a ruin, dusty, torn at the shoulder where she'd fallen, stained with dark, damp patches across the back. Her hair was a wild halo around a face streaked with tears and dirt, but her green eyes were dry now. Hard. Glittering with something that wasn't just pain. She faced the crowd. Hundreds of eyes. Judging. Pitying. A few, like Corvin's, gleeful. Thorn stepped beside her, a silent, imposing shadow. "Speak." Amelia drew a shuddering breath. Her voice, when it came, was hoarse, scraped raw, but clear. Loud enough to carry. It didn't tremble. "I stole Master Corvin's coin." A ripple through the crowd. "I did it with my own hands. I do not deny it." Thorn gave a barely perceptible nod. "But I will not apologize for wanting my brother to live." A collective intake of breath. Thorn's head turned sharply towards her. "Ellis is 8 years old. He lies in the damp dark beneath the tannery, burning with fever. He hasn't tasted bread in 2 days. The apothecary's herbs cost silver pennies. She jerked her chin towards Corvin, who flinched, counts so carefully in his pouch. You call me thief? Look around you. Her voice rose, gaining strength, ringing with a desperate, furious truth. Look at the children thin as whippets. Look at the widows who scrub floors until their fingers bleed for a crust. You built your fine houses on backs bent double. You hang rags on your tables while ours are bare. I stole a coin. You stole hope. You starved the light out of children's eyes and called it order. She stopped, chest heaving, staring directly at Alderman Thorne, defying him to strike her down where she stood. The silence that followed was profound. Not shocked. Awed. The baker's wife was openly weeping. The blacksmith stared at his own calloused hands. Corvin looked suddenly small, his face pale. Thorne's expression didn't change. Not anger. Not pity. Something colder. Assessment. He studied her, the raw defiance in her posture, the unbroken fire in her eyes, the ruined white frock clinging to her trembling frame. He saw not just a thief, but a spark. A dangerous, unpredictable spark. Without a word, he turned and walked to the edge of the platform. He didn't order her taken away. He simply gestured to a guard. Take her to the holding cell. Release her at dawn. It wasn't mercy. It was dismissal. Or perhaps, curiosity. The holding cell was a stone box beneath the Guildhall. Damp. Cold. Straw on the floor, smelling of mildew and despair. A high, barred window let in a sliver of moonlight. Amelia lay on the straw, not sleeping. The pain in her back was a constant, throbbing companion. Every breath pulled at the wheels. But the physical agony was secondary now. Regret? Yes. But not the regret they expected. She didn't regret taking the coin. Hunger wasn't a sin, it was a fact, as real as the stones around her. She didn't regret speaking the truth on the platform. Those words had been a lifeline thrown to every silent soul in that square. Her regret was precision. Timing. She regretted the stumble at the fruit stall. The glance back that let Jerick spot her. She regretted not knowing Corvin always patted his pouch after buying bread, a nervous tick she could have used. She regretted getting caught. Slowly, painfully, she sat up. Moonlight caught the white linen of her frock, stained and torn, but still hers. She reached up, fingers finding the loose ends of her braid. With meticulous, deliberate care, ignoring the pull of torn skin, she began to rebraid her hair. Tight. Neat. Secure. Each twist of the chestnut strands was a vow. Each tug on the leather tie at the end was a promise. Next time, the braid seemed to whisper, you'll be smarter. Faster. Invisible. Dawn came, gray and misty. The guard unlocked the cell. No words. Just a jerk of his head towards the door. She walked out, back stiff, head high. The market square was quiet, empty of stalls, dew glistening on the cobbles. The justice platform stood stark and empty in the pale light. The willow switches were gone. She didn't look back. 3 days later, Alderman Thorne sat in his study, oak-paneled and smelling of beeswax and old paper. Dawn light streamed through the leaded window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. He sipped water, reviewing tax rolls. A quiet morning. His hand went to his belt, out of habit, to feel the reassuring weight of his personal purse, small, leather, secured with a silver clasp, holding his day's stipend and a token for the ferryman. His fingers closed on empty air. He frowned. Checked his robe pockets. Nothing. A cold prickle, unfamiliar, traced his spine. He rose, searching the desk, the chair, the rug. Then he saw it. Tucked into the iron latch of his heavy oak door, fluttering slightly in the draught from the hallway, was a single strip of cloth. Not just any cloth. It was linen. Off-white. Slightly frayed at the ends. And tied in a simple, perfect bow. A scrap of a frock. Thorn picked it up. It was clean. Delicate. Almost mocking in its innocence. He stepped into the hallway. The guard at the end snapped to attention. Did anyone enter my study this morning? No, Alderman. None passed me. Thorn looked down at the ribbon in his hand. It felt significant. A message. He walked to the window overlooking the square. The market was just beginning to stir. Stalls were being set up. People moved like ants. And then he saw her. Not in white. In grey. A simple, practical tunic of undyed wool, same knee-length cut, same modest sleeves, but sturdy, warm, anonymous. Her chestnut hair was braided tight, no strands escaping. She walked with a new stride, not the desperate dart of the thief, but the calm, purposeful gait of a shadow. She carried a small, nondescript basket. As she passed the edge of the square, near the forest path, she paused. Just for a second. She turned her head, just enough for the rising sun to catch the profile of her face, pale, freckled, the green eyes sharp as ever. Then, the faintest curve touched her lips. Not a smile of joy. A smile of acknowledgement. Of promise. And then she was gone, melting into the green gloom of the woods beyond Harrows Hollow. Thorn stood at the window long after she vanished. The scrap of white linen lay heavy in his palm. The water in his cup had gone cold. He hadn't broken her. He'd forged her. Outside, the market bell began to toll. Business as usual.